Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome along everyone. Going to do a review on the Dremel 4300 or 4300, whichever way you like to say it. Before I do, I just really want to go over a couple of things as to why I chose the 4300. The main reason was that I went on a comparison website comparing all the Dremel models. The two lower ones, I think something like the 100 and 200, came out as their ideal tools for small, light work, but they don't really have much torque. Whereas the 3000 and 4000 range, they're a lot bigger and heavier, ideal more for things like carving and stuff like that, and have all the power. The other thing I had to take in consideration was do I want to go for a corded rotary tool or a cordless? I don't use the rotary tool very often, so to me a cordless one would be a bit of a waste of time because it would probably be sat in a box like this somewhere. I'd then get it out to use it, maybe just for a small 2-minute job, and the battery would be flat. So to me, having a cord isn't an issue, and it's always there readily available to use. So why did I choose between the 3000 and the 4000 range? Well, I believe the 4000 range is a slight upgrade on the 3000 range, and there are at least, I believe, 2 if not 3 models in the 4000 range. There's the 4000, there's the 4200 and the 4300. Now, oddly enough, when I did a search on those, I believe one of them, the collet size was a minimum of 3mm, whereas certainly like the 4300, like I've got, will take anything in the collet. To me, having that restriction of a 3mm collet size was something I wanted to stick clear of, and the reason for that was that a while ago I bought some bits on eBay, and when I actually measured these, the stems on these are actually 3mm. Now my old rotary tool has a collet size of around about 3mm too. The bits that came with it fit in there nicely. When I've tried these bits in it, they would have a tendency to slide out. So you had to be really, really careful when you used it, so therefore making it less usable and certainly more dangerous. In the end, I decided for the 4300. To me, it seemed more of the latest model. Now, when I did a search for the 4300, I think I came up with a couple of main places for them. Axminster Tools was one, and they had this exact very one. I'm not sure whether they did or somebody else did, but there's also one where they do a kit which is a lot bigger than this, has a lot more in, which is almost double the price. So I did more of a search of where I could find the 4300, and I also come up with Mano Mano. Now, I've never bought anything from Mano Mano before. I know that they do an awful lot in the community. Their name is banded about all over the place, and they've helped a lot of people out. So I thought, right, well, I'll give them a go. And the other reason why I also gave them a go was because they were £20 cheaper than Axminster. I actually paid, I think it was £109 for this, whereas Axminster Tools were £129. I had some questions that I wanted before I wanted to buy this, and this is probably my only downside with Mano Mano. I went on their website and they've got a live chat option, and every time I went on there, it didn't matter what time, it was over a course of 2 or 3 days. Every time I went on there during their normal office hours, it kept coming up saying no agents available. So that was my only downside. After a bit of research, I thought, right, yeah, I'm definitely going for it, and I ordered it through the Mano Mano website, and delivery, I've got to say, was fairly quickly. Now, when this turned up, it was actually in a cardboard box as well, a Dremel cardboard box, which, when you've got a proper storage carrying case like this, there's no need to keep it, so it's been binned. I've had this now for probably about 6 weeks and only really used it 2 or 3 times. I mean, that just shows the level of use I do on these. So having a proper storage box like this that you can just throw under your bench, something like that, was ideal. Now, on opening this up, and it's a really good strong storage box, the first thing you'll see is that the Dremel also comes on a holder. So with this, you could actually hang that on the wall and constantly have your Dremel available out if it's something you've got room for in your workshop. So the cord actually wraps around there nicely, all stows away nicely, and you can have the whole thing there. So the first thing is there's a little box of accessories, various tools. There's cutting discs, sanding drums, there's some drill bits in there, some polishing mops, and one or two other cutters in there as well. So you do get a reasonable selection to start with. As I said, I already have a rotary tool, which is what I bought from Maplin's, and this is what it came in. So as you can see here with this, I did get quite a few choices of the bits, and I still go back and use these even now. The main little cutters I've got here, as I showed earlier, I bought those carbide ones off of eBay and have used those. I still haven't a clue what to use these grey and orange ones for, and the pink ones, so please, if somebody knows about those, do leave a comment below. I would be really interested to hear. The drums, the sanding drums, I use most of all, and there is also several cutting discs in here, which you basically have to use one of these stems, take the screw off, put the disc on. Now with the Dremel ones, on these cutting discs, they have a special section on there, which should mean, and I haven't used this yet, which means that you should basically be able to put them on there. That's right, you have to pull that back, and you can fit them on there instantly like that, and then lock into place. Now I don't know the price of these, but that quick changeover is obviously something that's very good, but I dare say you pay for it. So if you're going to get through a lot of these discs, then one, it could either be fairly expensive, but if you do use an awful lot for cutting wise, it's quick and easy to change over rather than fiddling around with a little screw, which is what those discs are like. So for starters, there's a reasonable amount of bits in there for probably really all your basic needs, and it's something you can add on to quickly, cheaply afterwards. You don't have to go and buy the Dremel ones. There are an awful lot of alternatives out there, and again, there will be some cheap ones probably from China or something like that, which won't last very long, and you may well come up with some really good bargains. This piece actually comes with what it calls classes 3 accessories. The first one, which I've not even took out the bag yet, still sealed in the bag, is a circle cutting jig. So you can put your Dremel in there, and there should be a hole or a spike or something on here. You can put in your work, and then you can basically rotate round. I don't know the minimum size on here. I mean, by the looks of this, it's going probably from something like 4 centimetres right the way up to a 30 centimetre diameter hole. So it's, if you haven't really got anything else to cut holes with, or circles or arcs, this certainly would be a good, useful little extra. And I dare say that something like that probably retails on its own for, knowing the Dremel, probably £20–30, so it's worth a reasonable amount. The other tool in there is you can turn the Dremel almost a bit like a router. So the idea here is you've got a thing which goes up and down, and if you set that at its highest, the idea then is to mount your rotary tool in there and then set your bit so it's level with the bottom here, and then you've got an adjustment gauge on there, so you could quite easily go down 10mm into your work, very much like a rotary tool. It's there, fixed, and you can then just move it around. Now of course it comes with a manual and also an accessories chart. The manual does cover the 3000, 4000 and the 4300. There's only about 6 pages really for each language, but the first probably 20 odd pages covers all the drawings for the Dremel and all the accessories that come with it. Now the accessory chart, as you can see, has all the main accessories on there, so you can go by, there is an additional chart somewhere which tells you all the types of materials, and then at least you can decide what bits you need for which. So this does come with a reasonable amount, but you can soon add to it. So on the back here there's also quite a few of the accessories you can buy, and as I've covered in here, it comes with the circle cutting jig, also comes with the multi-purpose cutting kit, and in the bottom here we have the flexible shaft, which to me is probably the best accessory out of here of everything. So I'll cover the accessories as I go along, but the first thing we'll do is have a look at the actual Dremel itself. And as I say, it's the cord wraps around this nice and easily. And it's held in there really well. So it comes out like that. Now, first impressions of this weight-wise, it's not silly heavy, but it's not really going to be like your pen that you're going to be able to constantly do detailed work with. Now, one of the accessories on there was a grip so that you can hold this more like a pen, and that may well be worthwhile as an option, but I think with the Flexi Shaft you're probably less likely to use it. One of the selling points on this was the variable speed. I can't remember the exact specs on here, but on the reading here it goes from 0 to 35, or from 5 to 35. So I'm guessing that is starting off at something like 500 RPM, possibly up to 3,500 RPM. I mean, it could be 5,000 to 35,000 for all I know. Now the other thing what this comes with is a little LED light, as you can see on there. The other thing on here as well is that this button for locking the actual shaft is supposed to disengage so that you can't press on it when you've actually got the thing on. Now what I've found is, in actual fact, there is still a little bit of play in there which you can get vibration through the shaft. And if I spin that now, there you go, I can feel that juttering on there. At least it's not locking fully in place, that you should hopefully do too much damage, but it still is a bit of a worry that it's connecting on there. Now all the attachments go on the end here, and the first thing you have to do is take off the collet, and as you'll see there, the collet does actually close up to literally nothing, so it shows that you should be able to take any size bit that you want. So the collet comes off quite quickly and easily. The light comes off, and you can then just put on your different attachments. Now this one, as I said, I've never used before. You just wind it on there, and that's now in place. So it's easy to put your bit in with this off. There's no way you can get into the collet there properly. Place that on. My bit is almost level, just slightly protruding, and at least that way I can take this down to whichever depth I want, and we should then be ready. So I've got a bit of off-cut oak scrap wood here. It's got a knot in it as well. I honestly don't know what I've used this for. We've got the depth set there to probably about 3-4 millimeters, and I'll start this off on the slower speed to see how easy this is. And that is far too slow. And that needs to go up a bit. I've got to say, using that attachment with such a small device is far easier than using a rotor. So if you've got things where you need to do detail lines, it's going to probably be easier using something like this than a rotor. And I did a review on the Aldi small palm rotor a little while ago, and I would say that because of its size is a lot easier to go round. It would just be a case that if you've got the right bit in there for what you need to do, then it would be fine. So I've got to say that is an attachment that I will certainly make use of. So it's quick and easy to take off and take out your bit like that. Now I'm not going to use the circle cutting jig, it's just one of those things that you either need it or you don't, and I dare say there are some videos out there on how to use that, but I'm just going to, for the first time, I'm going to just use this like I would have done my old rotary tool. So we're going to put the light on just to see, so you can see what the work is like, and spin this up. Now I'm running on this at about 15 at the minute on the markings here, so we're not quite at half speed, and I think it really depends on what bits you've got in and to what work you're doing as to what speed you want this on. Well, I've got to say, holding it like that is reasonably comfortable. You wouldn't want to do that for long periods of time. The light certainly is of benefit, especially if you're working in darker areas, and it does show up precisely where you're working. Now I will say that if you are looking to use this more in this sort of format without the Flexi Shaft, then the added hand attachment might be better, but at that point you're going to lose your light, because I've got a feeling that the hand attachment will go onto this bit, so therefore your light has got nowhere to go. Now whether you can actually put the light on there still, I don't know. So I've got to say I'm quite impressed with that. Now but the main thing on here, which is the real bonus, is the Flexi Shaft. And to use the Flexi Shaft, you have to have the collar off here, which will go onto your Flexi Shaft. Where you can then put in your required bit. There's also a locking pin on the Flexi Shaft there. You can also use a little spanner on here, which does come in the box, to tighten this up even more if you want to, but I've found that by doing it hand tight with the ordinary bits in is absolutely fine. The only time I really do use that is before you attach this onto the shaft. There's a small nut which goes on there as a thread, and the shaft will, for this drive, will drive on the square hole that's in the middle of this, so it doesn't actually put any extra workload on the actual shaft of the Dremel. So you screw that on there fully, locking it in place again, and this is where I just tighten that up slightly with the spanner and just feed the shaft in and screw on the end there. So again, you've lost your light. You can't put that on here anywhere because there's nothing for it to screw onto. The one thing when you use the Flexi Shaft, it shouldn't be curled up too much. And what they do suggest, certainly manual wise, and as far as I've seen elsewhere on Dremel, is that you should really hang this from the ceiling. Now what I've done, because I sometimes use this over the lathe and here at this bench, I have basically put in a piece of wood into the ceiling and a couple of screws in it, and what I do is I have a piece of wire here. I had a couple of pieces of wire which I just twisted up using the drill, and I mount it on there, and the two screws just go with those holes. So what I have on the ceiling here, it's just an ordinary piece of scrap wood, and I've put a screw each side, and that's where I then just hook that on there and it stays in place. Now by having the Dremel up here out of the way, it keeps the cord nice and straight, and I'll just untangle my electric cord. The only thing then you need to worry about is the electric cord. So just need to tuck it out the way, and it then makes this piece more accessible. And you'll see that holding this, you could probably hold this for a lot longer and use it than you could off the machine itself. So it's nice and easy still to operate the settings. I mean, it's just basically the on-off switch on the Dremel there, and you've got the speed dial at the top if you need to change it there. And working with this is a lot easier, certainly if you're going to be using it for any considerable amount of time. Now the big difference I've found there, because like I say, it's the first time I'd used it a bit actually directly into the Dremel itself, is that you feel a lot more of the work with this. I was really feeling all the vibrations as I went through the grain, and when I had it in the actual Dremel itself, when I cut these lines right next to this one I've just done, I didn't feel any resistance with the grain whatsoever. So I'd say that if you've got to do more vigorous work, it's probably better to run the tool in the Dremel itself. But for more detailed and lighter work, then use the Flexi cord. So to summarise, would I recommend it? Well, I've got to say, if your budget is around about the £100 mark, what I paid for this, as I said, £109 I paid for this particular one, I would certainly say it's well worth the money. The real benefit in this kit is that Flexi Shaft. It takes you away from this bigger, cumbersome item if you are trying to do detail work, to having something a lot lighter. Would I go for this kit rather than the bigger kit? Well, if money was no object, I probably wouldn't have even gone for the 4300. There is a 9000 range, I believe it's 9100, which is primarily the smaller grip like the Flexi Shaft. It has, I believe, the torque and control of this, if not better. It's probably about at least double the price of this, maybe 3 times the price, and it's sort of like the jewel out of the whole Dremel range. Now the bigger kit from this, as I say, I believe is somewhere around about the £180–200 mark. So you would have to really look to see what all the extras are in it as to whether you thought it was worthwhile. As I said, this does come with a reasonable amount to get you started. But there are obviously lots and lots of extra accessories you can buy cheap elsewhere. Noise wise, while this is on the slower speed, it's no problem whatsoever. When it's on high speed, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to stick this down to the lowest setting. I'm going to probably not change the volume of the recording here, and then slowly wind it up to the highest setting. So it's really quiet there, just ticking over on number 5. So that's 10, 15, 20. So I've got to say that what's really odd there is that halfway through the range, somewhere around about the 20–25 mark, it's almost like it picks up some vibration from the speed it's running at, and it really makes a deep sound, which is probably its loudest point. But when you get up to the higher speed, it's more of a whining sound, but it loses that vibration. So basically what happened there, hopefully you can see the chart on here. I don't know whether we can actually enlarge that. Yes we can. We started off where I first switched it on here, and it was on between 5 and 10, but all of a sudden when we got to about 20, it's where it went to 5 there, up to about 10 to 15, and it wasn't really until we got this 20-25 mark that things really peaked out on the top here. And when you got past that vibration stage of around about 30, where the vibrations stopped, the levels slightly dipped, and then they peaked again when we got to the maximum speed. So in comparison to like the router that I tried, with this probably on sort of above medium speed to high speed, is just as loud. But when you're working on the slow speeds, it's actually quite quiet. So sound wise, I don't think it's too bad, certainly on the lower range. If you're using it for any length of period of time, certainly on the medium to high range, I would certainly recommend some form of ear protection. Hopefully that's been of use to you. If you're looking at buying one of the Dremels, I've got to say they are a really good, well-built tool. I'm really pleased with the 4300, and I would certainly buy it again. Thanks a lot for watching.